I just say things how it is, and sometimes it's brutal. Just the thoughts that maybe some people filter in their brain, I don't really do.
Jana, welcome to our first episode for the podcast, which we haven't named yet. If you were to express your inner weird, what would that look like?
Oh, I'm like, I don't want to expose myself here. My name's Little Slim, by the way. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. Whoa.
That's all right. It's a safe space.
Yeah, safe space with the hundreds of listeners that you can have.
Yeah, it's probably just my mum listening. But
I very much believe in sharing who you are. The ugly, the weird, the uncomfortable. Hey, what's happening over there, you little shit? You little butty! Come on now. It used to be really hard to open up, especially there was a lot of shame about my story and judgment, and just felt uncomfortable.
Why was that shame there?
I was the kid that didn't have parents, that had, mum died by suicide, no one knew. We didn't talk about that. That was always angry or always fun. People knew me for these things, and I was just ashamed of it.
What would you say to your younger self?
Be kinder to yourself. My story is something I used to be really ashamed of, but today I'm it's made me who I am. Having adults believe in me, inside and outside of reach, was probably the changing point for me. What we're about is sharing stories and building courage and resilience in young people so that they can live the best lives possible. We build connections with these kids, but also create spaces where they can be themselves and, push for greatness.
Shall we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Jana, welcome to our first episode for the podcast, which we haven't named yet.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, we wanted to do a bit of a check-in. You work for the Reach Foundation, one of the big dogs there. You guys always have a check-in with everyone before you start a session.
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now in this moment in time?
Right now, I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but also very confident in you guys. And I've never done something like this before. I've been behind the camera or been part of podcasts, but haven't been the sole person in it. So a little bit I hope I get it right. But I feel good. I feel comfortable with you guys and in your presence.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you, Ty?
I feel good. I feel excited. I've also never done a podcast before. Excited that Jana's the first too. Yeah, you've been very special to us. I haven't known you for that as long as Vinny's known you, but Vinny's always spoken highly of Jana.
Aww.
And he's like, oh, you got to meet Jana. She's a good egg. Yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, been very excited to have you guys, have you on as the first. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited, unprepared, but I think that's part of the beauty of it. I feel like being interviewed's fine, but I find it hard sometimes facilitating something like this. Yeah. So we take our hat off to you for all the work that you do, because I feel like it's much harder to get up and speak in front of a group of young people than it is a group of adults. Yep. So yeah, young people are scary. Yeah, they're amazing too, but it takes balls what you do, and you do it so effortlessly and just with such love and care. So
yeah, you do a fair bit of heavy lifting there.
They do all the work, I guess. You just ask a few questions, and if they participate, it means that it's working. So. Yeah,
but you create that space for young people to feel like they can be open and vulnerable. Yeah. So and that's a gift, and that's no easy feat as well. So yeah, well done on all the work you're doing and will continue to do as well.
Thank you.
You are a Reach facilitator, which we'll get into a little bit later. But before we do that, we're just going to jump into what we call the fire of... Hang on, I fucked that.
You're doing so well.
So good. It's good.
No, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I think that's
that's the whole point of the authenticity, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's in your work that you do as well. you allow people to show up as they are and in every moment, and that's fine. So yeah, we're just going to freeball it.
Absolutely.
Sorry, freestyle it. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times.
Always.
Actually. I always say
Always.
freeball, and he's like, "That's not wearing underwear."
Even I've bloody adopted it now too.
Yeah, okay.
It's funny. It's
Yeah.
fun.
So yeah, we're calling this segment 5 of Fire. So we're just going to fire away a couple of questions.
Cool.
They're just random, and they're to give our listeners a little bit more of an insight as to who our guests are.
Yeah.
So are you ready?
Ready. Do I have to answer them quickly or?
No,
Okay.
no. Take your time.
Go.
We've got all night.
Got it.
Yeah, if you want to stop and think about it too.
All right. Sweet.
Yeah, cool. So first question, what are some of the hats you wear in your everyday life and why?
Hats. Manager, facilitator, auntie, sister, partner. Those kind of hats that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Cool. And why? I think when I think of work, that's a huge why for me is what I do at Reach, and doing exactly what you guys are doing right now, and creating spaces for people to be honest and vulnerable, be able to share who they are and their story. I think my favourite hat is being an auntie, but there's some of the hats that I wear. Really funny friend, I think, too.
Yeah. One thing you did mention is that you love to make people laugh. That's a big part of your charm.
Yes, absolutely.
That was also one of your masks too.
It is. Yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, we know each other well.
Absolutely. Definitely one of my masks that I wear, and was something that it's something I've worn for as long as I can remember. And it's used in a really good way, and also sometimes in a pretty bad way. Yeah.
And for those that are listening in now, would you be able to just explain a little bit about what that is? Because obviously we all know what the masks are, but from a Reach point of view.
Absolutely. We, throughout our workshops, I guess we explore the idea of masks and layers as a way to kind of, I guess, pinpoint what are the things that we put up to the world and the people around us to kind of hide our authenticity and who we really are. But what we discover when we look at masks is that these forms of protection, they're there to serve a form of protection for us, but they're also they hide parts of who we are and what's really deep down. So that's the idea of masks. And I guess as you've called me out, mine is humour, and not just humour, but like just easing tension for people is something like that I really like to do, and making a fool of myself so I can make people around me feel really comfortable.
At your own expense.
Yeah, and a lot of the time I think it's a really positive when I'm working with young people, or I'm at work, or with my friends and family. But I think sometimes it can be like I can take some jokes pretty far and go pretty all out in them.
Love that, but you got to do that, I suppose, with young people as well, and I think they respect that.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Always bringing a vibe, Jana.
That's what I'm here for.
So besides facilitating and being a positive change for young people, tell us a little bit more about what you're passionate about.
I think I'm passionate about quite a lot of things. Definitely, it's a weird one because what I'm most passionate about is linked to a lot of my work, but is the whole point of me creating environments for people that is creating safety, and not just as a facilitator, but that mask that I'm talking about. Like, something I'm very passionate about is being remembered as someone that was not just funny or, happy or things like that, but someone that made people around me comfortable and feel proud of who they are and feel acknowledged and loved. I think that's a massive passion, and I do that through storytelling, through making people laugh, through, going to movies with people, like whatever that might be. But I don't know how to word what it is, but I like making people feel seen around me.
Accepted.
Yeah, accepted's a good word.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I think that a lot of people in the world, it's all about acceptance, and that's where we get that mask, right? Mm-hmm. Because you put on that mask so that you can feel accepted, feel liked.
Absolutely.
And
Very
I love
true.
that.
And these masks often hide our inner weirdness.
Yeah.
So we're all weirdos in our own right.
Mm.
If you were to express your inner weird, what would that look like?
Oh, I'm weird all the time. I am. Oh, I'm like, I don't want to expose myself here.
That's all right. It's a safe space.
Yeah, safe space with the hundreds of listeners that you can have.
Yeah, it's probably just my mum listening. But
I don't know. I think that, again, like, I just say things how it is, and sometimes it's brutal, but sometimes it's also like just the thoughts that maybe some people filter in their brains. I don't really do, which is a gift and a curse. And I think that's where my weirdness comes out, is that I'll say something that's not really beautiful or pretty, but it will be very awkward and like, why the fuck did she just say that? And yeah, and I think it comes out in my humour and the way I treat people. Yeah.
It's super real as well. And maybe some people can't handle that, but I think that's what makes you a brilliant facilitator as well, because you say it how it is, and you give people permission to be themselves and to let their walls down.
And is there a particular philosophy or belief that guides your life?
I think everything that I do comes down to fairness for me, or equality, or just the way, like, I'm a huge belief that people should be given chances, and the way that I lead and the way that I guide people. I think that's one of my biggest kind of philosophies, is that people should be treated with fairness and respect. Yeah, and just that I like very much believe in sharing who you are, and like all parts, not just the good ones, or like, you know, the pretty and dress well and present well, like the ugly, the weird, the uncomfortable. They're my philosophies.
What does happiness look like to you?
Happiness. Hard one. I don't describe myself as a very happy human all the time, if I'm really honest. And if this is about being very honest, I could spin some shit and say, oh, this is what it is. It's not a feeling I often associate with, but it's definitely like, I just think straight away of my family, and more particularly like my niece. And like, this sounds, so random, but like happiness is literally like, for me, like the last few months of when the Matildas were playing. I'm going to sound like such a loser here, but like the Matildas were playing, and like all of that, and just watching young people that are queer, particularly, that are more like I identify with, like that's happiness of being accepted. Maybe I just care about acceptance. I'm learning right now. Yeah.
You mentioned when you asked you about happiness, and then you said you don't really consider yourself as a happy person. Then you mentioned you think of your family. Why did you say that? What do you mean? Like, what is it with?
Yeah, I think more like when I think of Thalia, my niece, it's like she reminds me of what joy is.
And how old is Thalia?
She's 9.
9.
Yeah.
Well, that's a interesting age.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would resonate a lot with you, especially now.
Yeah.
We know, obviously, your story. Are you comfortable to open up about your young years?
Yeah, so 9, I didn't even think about that, to be honest. But 9, that's the age that for me, my mum took her own life. So yeah, I think I'd probably look at her, at Thalia, and go like, you have such a different life to what I had, and I'm very proud of that for her. Whereas my life was very chaotic and different, and not happy.
So you're sort of that, you can be that person for Thalia, like you can let her have that life now, that you maybe felt like you. I don't want to talk for you.
No, yeah.
But it's just some symbolic. Like I can picture it now. Like if I was in your shoes going through that, like interesting. Like you'd be able to be that person now for her, and that's probably somewhere why you have that connection. And she's someone special for you.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
you maybe see yourself in her.
Oh, a little bit. I think I'm like thinking, whenever I'm in Sydney and I'm with her or I'm with my family, I'll do all the things that like kids should do. And I think that's because I probably didn't have that, and that I want her to make sure. Like she'll say things that I'm like, that's too old. Nah, let's go to the movies and watch a cartoon. Like, you know, let's go to Time Zone. And it's like she wants to put makeup on and stuff. I'm like, no. It's probably the part of me that's like, no, a bit tomboyish as well, but the part of me that's also like, I want you to be a kid.
Yeah. Don't grow up too
yeah.
quickly or ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you didn't get to be a kid with what you experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was, I think even when my mum was alive, I don't think I really had what I would consider a normal childhood, or one that I wish that I had. Definitely grew up quicker and was exposed to so much. Yeah, so many like drugs and alcohol and violence and, things that I think made me grow up way quicker.
With what happened to your mum, like what was the sort of aftermath of that? How did life look like for you after hearing that news?
Yeah. It was very choppy, very like so much was changing for me. I think I just remember like there's not a lot of memory I have, if I'm honest. Like there's like snippets, and maybe it's because I was young, or maybe it's because of that trauma and trying to kind of push it away. But I can remember like my sister, who was about 17 or 18 at the time, just trying to figure out what we're going to do, and Dad not really being there. My grandma, who was very old at the time, but like trying to look after us, and my mum's friends trying to care for us, but no one really knew what to do. And I think for me, I was very angry at that. So, it'd be weeks where I'd be at an auntie's house or an uncle's house, and that felt okay, but it was never home. Or I'd be, as I got older in high school, I'd rather stay at my friends' houses because they had a mum and dad at home, and I didn't have to, awkwardly take people to my house that wasn't clean and wasn't, I didn't have my own bed. And so, yeah, life was, I don't know, it felt like very messy for me. Not very stable.
And what sort of effect does that have on you as a young person?
I think so much. I think I truly just didn't think that I could have a good life as a young person. I literally just thought that I actually couldn't picture my life as an adult when I was younger. And I think by the way that my mum passed away, I thought that was going to be my experience. And given my mental health and my struggles with mental health. And so, yeah, I think that I just didn't really have any plans or know what was going to happen. Yeah.
And are there any other defining moments that maybe shaped who you are today from your young years?
So many. I think joining Reach, defining moment.
How old were you then?
I was about 15 or 16. I had I think I was very lucky. I had teachers that really cared about me, and I've spoken about them so much. Family that also cared about me, or chosen family and friends and people at Reach. And I think having adults believe in me inside and outside of Reach was probably the changing point for me. And then the first time I got accredited as a facilitator, that was a massive achievement because I never really had awards growing up and things like that. And it was something, I think the first time I felt real proud of an achievement I had.
For those listening who haven't heard of Reach, can you give us a little bit of a rundown on what Reach is?
Reach is a non-profit organisation that works with predominantly young people, and we work with young people from all walks of life. So, kids that are maybe grown up like me, kids that have grown up in really nice and privileged homes and all of the above. And what we're about is sharing stories and building courage and resilience in young people. So that they can live the best lives possible. We build connections with these kids, but also create spaces where they can be themselves and, push for greatness for themselves.
My school, I went to an all-boys school, and I remember Reach, or our school going to Reach when I was in year 9. And I remember walking in, and there was about 500 kids, and I was like, within like a few hours, there were guys from my school talking about their relationship with their parents, talking about their life, opening up, getting emotional. And I was like, what is this place? Like, I couldn't believe the transformation that was happening in the room and the feeling in the room. And that really stuck with me. It's probably the only workshop in high school that actually stuck with me to this day. And then years and years later, as an adult, I went and sat in on that same workshop, and the same smartasses were walking through the door, and within like hours it was the same story. Like the smartasses were up on stage and they were getting emotional and speaking about their life. And it made me realise just how much Reach's work is so important for people nowadays as it was back then. So, and that was 10 years prior when I sat in as a year 9 myself. I remember you speaking about your first experience with Reach. We believe it all started with a pack of durries. Is that right? Can you fill us in?
Yes, pack of durries. I haven't heard the term durries in a while. A few of my friends were part of Reach at the time, and they were a little bit older than me, and they were hassling me to try and come to Reach, and they had to buy me a packet of ciggies, give me like $50 at the time. I can't really remember. I was for food and that, and then paid for my cab to get there. And I was like, all right, fine, but you have to do those things. And they did, and I got there and I never left.
Did you know sort of a little bit about Reach at that time, or were you going in blind?
I knew a little bit, but I think I was pretty young to understand it. Like I used to go to a lot of like community centres as a kid, and I think I just thought it was similar to that. And it's very different to that, and I didn't realise that it was talking about your feelings and all of that. And I was like, I think that's why I was, a bit taken aback the first time I went to a workshop. And I was very much trying to be the coolest in the room. But yeah, for me, it was like, please don't ask me a question, please don't ask me a question. But probably deep down, this want to be asked a question, if I'm being honest. Yeah, being asked, it was after a sensory, which is like a movie in your mind, reflection, and then you're left with an honest question. And the sensory was about a kid that's been left it's going to sound crazy, this was, nearly 10 years ago, but a kid that's been left at a park on their own, and you're picturing it, and that kid turns out to be you. And I was picturing myself, and I just remember for the first time going far out, I don't know who would come and pick me up, or I don't have that person that I was picturing. I couldn't finish the end of the story in my head, and that got me emotional, and I was trying to be cool and push the tears away. And yeah, the facilitators saw, and they didn't let it go, and they treated me with a lot of care. But yeah, it was an opportunity for me to just share. And I just remember other people in this room having lost parents, or been in, families where there's domestic violence and drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and then hearing them and going, oh, far out, I'm definitely not alone.
Do you think that the environment there and having other kids that have had similar paths, that helps a lot with opening up?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I just remember my teacher always making me go to the school counsellor, and just I used to take the piss so hard. It was I'm not talking to this person, but the awkwardness of being face to face with an older person and just going I have no connection to you, no relatability. And I think for me as a young person, that I was in the room with people dressed like me, looked like me, had a similar life, and some were really different, but the ones that stood out to me were the ones that were similar. Very much helped me be oh, not alone.
It's like a domino effect, and that is the beauty of being open and vulnerable in front of other people, and it creates that safe space for others to do the same as well. Yeah. How did it feel after sharing?
After leaving that, I felt a lot lighter. And yeah, I kept coming back for a reason, I guess.
Chasing a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a feeling you get when you're there. I mean, I felt it in the room.
Yeah.
There's just this insane, it's the mask thing. It's you guys make that safe space, and you basically say, okay, take your mask off now. And then people take that mask off. And then the feeling you get when you take that mask off, and then you get accepted for showing yourself without that mask. That's that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's euphoric, but
that's what
it's
keeps people coming back.
That's the part that keeps you, coming back. So that acceptance.
Ty and I have had the privilege to see you in action, facilitating your workshops. But something I often think about is you're taking on a lot of people's emotions and trauma, and walking away from the camp a few weeks ago that I was on, the 1,000 Faces camp, like you definitely feel the heaviness, you feel the beauty of it all. But how do you go with carrying that heaviness? How do you deal with it, and how does it affect you in your everyday?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our work is preventative based, and I think that the way that we as facilitators need to look at it is similar. And if I'm not doing good, or I'm not looking after myself mentally, physically, whether that be seeing my counsellor or talking to people or going to the beach, whatever that might be, then I don't think that I'm capable enough of handling what can be in a workshop. And so I think the part is in the preventative work that we do for ourselves. But also we don't always get it right. Well, I don't always get it right. There's some, like after camp that happened just recently, like I was exhausted, and I was very emotional for 2 weeks, and I felt a lot of that heaviness. And for me, it's about, I guess, talking to whether it's wellbeing at our work or my own psychologists. Again, being around the people that fill my cup up. I think there's also this part that's like you build a bit of resilience towards it. And not to say that things don't impact me, because they absolutely do, but I think there's a lot of hope as well that I have with young people and their stories.
Yeah, because you being the senior facilitator of that camp with Josh as well, like you guys are like the rock.
Yeah.
You're keeping everyone grounded, but at the end of the day, you guys are human as well. So, like...
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's like we give a little bit of ourselves too, because I feel like if I came in and I didn't, share who I am or land, I don't think I can hold the space the way that I do. And we have an incredible team that backs us all the way from staff members to wellbeing to crew to young people, adults, like people back us, me and Josh specifically, to do the job. And so we always have that support outside.
Yeah. But recently we've worked on the Reach brand story, which we're calling Stories of the Reach Foundation. And then there are so many stories to capture, but I think it was really nice to chat to yourself and Regan and Caleb, 3 completely different humans. Can you tell us, like, what's it like sort of opening up for yourself? Like,
I think you guys make it very easy for us, or particularly me. I think that it used to be really hard to open up, especially like there was a lot of shame about my story and judgment, and just felt uncomfortable. But I feel like today, I think knowing the impact that it can have on people, just like the impact that older facilitators had on me, I think that it's something that I do with pride. And it's my story. It's something I used to be really ashamed of, but today I'm like, it's made me who I am. Even the really shitty parts that I'm like, oh, won't add that in, or I won't say that, or that feels weird. They made me the person that I am.
Why was there that shame there?
Oh, I didn't know many people with the life that I had. And there's still things that I'm like, I won't say, like I wouldn't say, and that's okay. But I just so much judgment. Like I was the kid that didn't have parents, that had, mum died by suicide. Like no one knew. We didn't talk about that. That was always angry or always fun. Like, people knew me for these things, and I was just ashamed of it.
Do you talk about it now?
My sister, we're very close. We don't talk about emotions though. And she'll probably listen to this one day and be like, yeah, we do. I'm like, no, we don't. Not the way I do at work. When I talk about family, it's funny because they're not even blood. Like I talk about these 2 ladies that, these ladies, like they don't have names, like Lambrini and Sylvia. They were my mum's friends, and they took us in as family, and they're people that I think of when I'm thinking of family. And I have cousins that I very much love, and auntie and uncle, but there's so many of them that I don't know, or I don't talk to, or I've lost touch with. So it's weird that I think of, they're not even really blood.
Having that experience with your mum's friends as well, does it make you feel close to your mum as well? Yeah,
so much. When I'm back home and I'm with either of them or with their families, and I feel a lot closer. Especially when I go home for Christmas or for Greek Easter, like that, when I can get home for that time. My culture as well, like being Greek and Orthodox, and like I'm like, oh, I'm not religious at all actually, but I still go to church sometimes because it reminds me of my and my mum, and like it's funny because my friends were like, why the fuck do you go to church? You're gay, you've got to, like, it's just, it doesn't fit. Not that you can be gay and whatever. You do you.
Yeah.
But I'm like, nah, I feel very connected to my culture, and that makes me feel very connected to my family.
Having that big wog family as well. Like I remember you saying once, like it's harder for some generations of, big wog families to talk about their emotions.
Yeah.
Obviously, like we are getting better at it as a society, but it's a lot harder for those older generations to talk. So, and then having the occupation that you do, being a reach facilitator, where you're speaking your truth every day at work and encouraging others to do the same. What's it like going back into an environment like that where it's different and people aren't as open?
My walls couldn't be more up, especially if I don't see my dad very often, and but I had seen him a few times, like maybe the beginning of the year or last year, and just I go back to what I was like when I was younger, and I hate it. So like this little young girl comes out like a very like scared, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I'm in like flight or fight mode. Like, so that's when I'm with them. When I'm with my sister and stuff, it's we fight like crazy and stuff, but it's also very playful. But I can feel this part of me. Like I can't, when I go back to Sydney, I strategically plan how long I'm going to go for, because I'm like, there's this like point where I'm like, I have to come back home to Melbourne, because it feels, I've had enough.
And if you're comfortable with answering, what was your relationship like with your dad?
Yeah. Can't, like, when I was younger, like him and my mum were together. He was in and out of the house. Like he owned nightclubs and brothels and all of that. And so for me, I would see him, and he'd, work really late nights, but I'd see him every now and then. And I guess when my mum passed away, and he obviously was very impacted by it. And that's something that I didn't think as a kid that he was. I was very angry at him. But as I'm an adult now, I'm like, he would have been really hurt as well, or, sad and all of those things. But I think for me, there was times where I would live with him, or I'd see him every now and then. It just felt a little bit awkward. And today, I don't talk to him. Like the last time I talked to him, as I said, was earlier, I think this year. And my sister had told, my sister was like, do you want to tell Dad that you are gay and all this stuff? And I was like, all right, just tell him. Like, I don't want to tell him. Like, I don't really care, but you can tell him. And I thought, I'm going to test him. If he accepts it, then I'm going to, like, maybe we can have a relationship. Like, maybe this is like a second chance for him. And he didn't. And I think that kind of, I realized, and I was like, it's not really what I want right now.
How did that sort of play out for you?
It was hard. My sister he told my sister, and my sister kept it from me for months, and because she didn't want to hurt me. And I kept being like, I'm just going to give this man a try. Like, I'm going to see what, I think there's this need that I have still, that I'm like, I want parents. I want someone as an adult to look after me. And I am an adult, but I think there's a need that I have for that. And so I would call him or text him or send him a photo being like, oh, look at, like, I'm on holiday, and I wasn't getting any responses. And my sister would be like, oh, I spoke to Dad today. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, he's not talking to me. And she didn't want to tell me, and she told me. And it was, I was pretty upset. And I was angry that I was upset. I was like, I shouldn't have expected anything. But I was, it hit me for 6. I was pretty hurt by it. And I think because I was like, we had seen each other a couple of times, and he was actually okay. Like, he was nice and whatever, like the bare minimum. But I thought that it could be different now.
Why?
just that I'm an adult, he's an adult. We've had like years not talking to each other. He's got a kid and he seems like he's a really good dad to him. And I thought maybe he's not in the environments that he was in. He's not on drugs. And I really believe that maybe he had changed. And maybe he has, but probably not in the way that I expected or wanted.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, sometimes life is quite interesting. People come and go. And I mean that for like close people, you know, family too. Like there's so many different families where things break down.
Yeah.
You know, people start fighting and then they don't see each other for years and then they come back again. And it's just people are not ready, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the fact that, you know, not all your family is going to be blood. Like you're going to have your chosen family, which you've got around you as well. So, yeah, you've been through a lot with that chosen family as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, someone that I often think of, my girlfriend, her mum, who's no longer with us, she passed away last year, but she was in my life for a fair few years, and she was like, it felt like another kind of chance of having a mum, and as she was an incredible woman, and I think thinking of people like her or people that I worked with at Reach when I was, younger and now look up to as kind of role models, I'm like, they give me that kind of family and that love and that support. So I do get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking forward, what are some of your hopes for your future? What does the future look like for Jana?
Future for me, I want a lot. I'm pretty greedy, if I'm honest.
World's your oyster.
Yeah. I think when I think of my career, I think I want success, and I want I want to run a company or do things like that, but I haven't nailed exactly what it is yet. I'm very content with Reach. But when I think of outside of my work and stuff like that, like I cannot wait to have a family and have a home and create it for myself and, bring up little kids that, are little dirtbags, but I can teach to be pretty incredible humans, I hope. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm very much looking forward to. And it's cliche, but I think I didn't really want to ever have kids until a couple of years ago. And that really changed for me. So,
what changed for you?
Probably my age. I think I just never thought that I could be like a good role model or mum, or I've never really it just freaks me out a bit. And I think a couple of years ago in my life when I realised that I am a bit of a role model or I can be mature or all of those things, I was like, oh, hold on. And then seeing people have kids around me, like especially like gay women, and I'm like, it's actually a bit more realistic now. And there's a couple that I'm friends with who have just had a baby, 8 months ago or something, and I've seen them as parents, and I'm like, I cannot wait to do that. And look up to that. And I think just seeing a bit more representation in queer people, and that it's not all fucked up, like it's normal too.
Well, I can definitely say you are already a role model to hundreds, if not thousands, of young people around Australia. So, to have your own would be pretty cool.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So looking back now to where you're at now, looking back to your younger self, what would you say to your younger self?
Try harder at school. Be kinder to yourself. I think I'd also say, I think I'd want to be better to my sister and my family, who did try their best to look after me as a young person. But, and probably just continue to learn more about yourself earlier.
And do you have any goals for the next 12 months?
12 months. I think for me, I want to do something more creative like this, and I've said it for a long time, but I just got to bite the bullet and just have, I guess, the courage that I preach about, and do it. And yeah, I feel intelligent and I feel capable and confident, but creativity isn't a strength of mine. So I think flexing that would be something that I'd like to do.
How are you going to keep yourself accountable for those goals?
Well, I've just said it on this, so I guess you can tap into it.
True.
Nah, I think knowing that I can ask you guys as well for like support, because
always,
this is what you guys do and what you're incredible at, and
Thank you.
have a relationship with you guys that I feel like I can ask you now.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, our recent work with yourself and the Reach Foundation, the Reach brand story, we're calling it Stories of the Reach Foundation. You feature in that.
Yeah.
How was it to be a part of that?
So fun. Definitely one of the first times I've ever done something like that. Like, definitely been behind the camera before, but not so, formal or seriously.
We're kind of stalking you for
Yeah,
a while.
I know. It was cool.
Got a workshop coming up?
What do you got next? No, it was cool. And I think that's one of the things I think I learned a bit more confidence about myself in, because I was like, oh, like you're curious about my life. And yeah, it was a cool feeling. Definitely would, after like I say something, go, fuck, did I just get it right? Or are they going to edit that out? Like, but I guess that's okay. But yeah, I had a really good time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being so open today and always. Stories of the Reach Foundation is live now on our website, so go check it out.
Well, you guys make it very easy, I think, for people to open up or just to be in your presence. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for being our first guest and
Nice.
Watching us fumble through it.
It's been fun.
Yeah. I was just gonna pump up your tires a bit more, but you are an amazing facilitator and you are an amazing person, and that's why we wanted to have you on as our first guest. So we had to freeball a little bit, freestyle.
No, I've loved it. Thank you guys so much, and like it's a
Pleasure.
cool opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Bring it in.
Yeah.
Bring it in.
Nice, we did it. Oh, thank you guys.
Thanks for listening to In Depth and In Focus. Your support is greatly appreciated. So if you want to hear more from us and our guests, please hit subscribe.